Check. The longest minute. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Dana Point City Council meeting of March 2nd, 2021. City Clerk, would you please provide the roll?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. All members of the City Council are present.
Thank you very much. And tonight's Pledge of Allegiance will be led by Councilmember Viller.
Everything stand. Face the flag. Right hand over your heart. Ready? Begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We have no invocation tonight and no presentations or proclamations. But Mr. City Attorney, I understand you may have a request for an amendment to the agenda.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, thank you. I'd like to ask the council to add an item to the agenda for closed session. We had something that's come up since the agenda was posted that requires our immediate attention. The item that would be added is a conference with legal counsel as a result of existing litigation pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9D1. The title of the case is the City of Dana Point versus Donna's House, LLC, et al., Orange County Superior Court case number 302018-010-11635-CLC-MU-CJC. If the council is willing to entertain a motion to add that to agenda, it will take a 4/5 vote.
Right. Thank you, Mr. City Attorney. Madam Clerk, I will move that we amend the agenda to consider the item that the City Attorney mentioned in closed session after the completion of the open agenda.
I'll second it.
Any discussion? Then I think we can all vote verbally. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? That passes, and we will consider that item at the end of open session. Thanks, Mr. City Attorney. That brings us to reading of ordinance titles. At this time, the City Clerk will read the titles. Madam Clerk, are there any ordinance titles to read?
Mr. Mayor, I do not have any ordinance titles this evening. Thank you.
All right, thank you. That brings us to the consent calendar. All matters listed under the consent calendar are considered to be routine and will be enacted by one roll call vote. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless members of the council, the public, or staff request specific items to be removed from the consent calendar for separate action. Are there any items to be removed by the public?
No, Mr. Mayor.
By the staff?
No, sir.
Council? Madam Clerk, are there any public comments regarding the consent calendar?
No, Mr. Mayor.
Then I will move all of the items on the consent calendar.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Those pass. Thank you. Brings us to public comments. Madam Clerk, are there any public comments?
Not this evening.
No public comments tonight. Thank you. That brings us to council reports. Fellow council members, do you have any items to report? Councilmember Frost.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've turned in all my meetings to the clerk. Thanks.
Mr. Vixort.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have nothing to report. I will turn to my list of meetings after the meeting.
Thank you. Mr. Villar.
I have nothing to report, and I've turned in all my meetings.
Mayor Pro Tem Miller.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a couple things tonight. I want to remind everybody that we have the Sarah Siding Extension Project. That is the double tracking of Amtrak through Dana Point that's actually stacking down in Capitol Beach. We have a meeting on that. What's the date on that? Wednesday. Hold on, that's not right. Did we already do this? I missed it. Well, there'll be another one. So we need to make sure that the community stays alert and aware of what's going on down here. This will have a big impact on our community, and we need to make sure that we make our voices heard, that we do need some improvements down in that area, and we're going to expect those if they want us to agree with this project. The second thing I have is we got some really good news out of OCFA last week. I don't know if you remember, we had two hand crew firefighters that were burned in the Silverado. No, it wasn't Silverado. It was the last fire we had. I can't remember the name of it, but they were caught in a flare up that happened behind them. There was nowhere for them to go. They ended up in the hospital with third-degree burns over 80 to 90% of their bodies. Our first firefighter got out this week, and he is over. He's back over at UC Irvine for rehab. He's very exciting. He was out speaking. He sounded in good spirits, and he can't wait to get back to work. I don't have an update on our second firefighter, but just keep them in your prayers, and remember their families and everything that they're going through. So that's all I had tonight. I have turned in my list of meetings, and that's it. Thanks.
Thank you, gentlemen. I have also turned in my list of meetings, and I would just like to remind everyone that this weekend is the 50th annual Festival of Wales. And while because of COVID, it's a little bit different, there are still a ton of great events hosted by the Festival of Wales Committee, the Chamber of Commerce. And in particular, we have three events that are hosted. There we go. Hosted by the City of Dana Point Recreation Department. So you can see on your screen there on Saturday, March 6th, the Under the Sea Trolley will be traveling around the harbor and doing all sorts of fun, cool stuff and gift bags for children. And then the Whale Tail Scavenger Hunt, which may not have its own slide. Throughout the weekend, there will be whale tails hidden around the harbor. And for those families interested, you can take pictures with all of those and email them into the City of Dana Point and be qualified then to win some very cool gifts and prizes. I think a whale watching trip for a family of four and a $300 gift card to local Dana Point businesses if you can find all 10 of the whale tails. And last but not least, a Whale of a Kids Art and Literature Contest, which you can find details about on our website. If you submit a cute story, poem, or artwork themed about the California gray whale, you can enter to win a family whale watching trip and a gift basket. So a ton of cool, great stuff to do this weekend. Please go out and support the Festival of Whales and enjoy yourselves and enjoy all the cool stuff that the harbor has to offer. That's all I have. And that brings us to the meat and potatoes of tonight's agenda. Item number 12, the Utility Box Artwork Program. The recommended action is that the City Council authorize staff to release an application for the second phase of the Utility Box Artwork Program, to authorize the Arts and Culture Commission to select artists, and authorize staff to use $25,000 of the Arts and Public Places Fund to produce and install 14 vinyl wraps and award $250 to artists whose work is selected for the boxes. Is there a staff report?
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and City Council. At the most recent meeting of the Arts and Culture Commission, the Commission discussed the second phase of the Utility Box Artwork Program and has brought forward that recommendation for your approval. The Commission is recommending another 14 traffic signal boxes around Dana Point. One of those 14 is sort of adjacent in front of the high school. We'll be working with the high school directly for that box, for the artwork on that box, but the other 13 will be available through a call for artists to submit artwork to be displayed on those boxes. Just like the first phase, we're going to run the program very similar. There are only two differences. The first difference is that we are going to compensate, or recommending to compensate, $250 per artwork selected. And then the second change is we're going to leave the call for artists open for a longer period of time in hopes that we get some additional submittals to consider. I'm available for any questions. We're looking at June timeframe for the selection of artwork and summertime for install. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Frenders. Madam Clerk, are there any public comments?
No, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Would any of the council like to move the action or discuss or make comments?
So,
Questions for the staff?
a quick comment. Mr. Kilber, I was approached by a company about a year ago when we started this, called Winkler, And they offer a service that they were going to pilot in Santa Monica when COVID hit. They shut it down. But it was something I was thinking about on these boxes, that they offer a flat screen that you can put on the box, and we can actually put up ads, or we can put city information out. But as you go by them, there's a flat screen. You can touch it. You can actually interact with it. And I thought it might be interesting to do that on these boxes, because a lot of this artwork that's out there are actually professional artists that are submitting their work, but you may not know who they are because it's on a box. And it could be a good way for us to say, okay, this is who the artist is. This is, maybe a link to their gallery. This is, we can just get more and more information out and help our residents. It's, it's even farther reaching than that. And Ms. Renders, you and I maybe should sit down and talk about the economic development opportunity with it as well. And they're looking for a city to pilot it since Santa Monica walked out. And I thought this might be a good time to introduce it. I know it's not part of this agenda, but I think it's something we should talk about. Would it work? Does it make sense for Dana Point? Because we are taking a look at using technology to draw more tourists and visitors to our community. And one of the things we always have a problem with millennials is they like instant information, and we can push information to them through this as they walk by. So with that, I'll go ahead and move this item and talk to staff about that later. Thanks.
I'll second that.
Would you like the floor?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Thank you very much. I actually have some questions for staff. That something you said, Mr. Runners, triggered a question in my mind. You said we're going to leave the application period open longer. Did we not receive enough applications in the first go around? Is there some reason we think we're not going to get enough quality applications? Do you know how many we got last time?
I think I referenced it in the staff report. I think we got 28 applications last time for 9 boxes. So we did well. And a lot of those were locals that applied, and we, of course, will encourage them to apply for this second round as well. But I think we'd like more time to advertise the program and, make sure that we allow artists sufficient time to go look at boxes, to, think about different locations and what kind of artwork they may want to conceive for the box. And, having additional time to allow for that may be helpful for them. And it also gives us more time to advertise the program.
Okay. And again, I'm sorry to put you on the spot.
It's okay.
These questions are just coming in my mind now. But when you're talking about the local artists, and I understand this is meant to help the local artists, how are you defining that? Is there artists that live in Dana Point, work in Dana Point, in Orange County? What do you mean by local artists?
Well, I would say that probably, and I don't have the exact number in front of me, but we worked with Dana Hills High School last time and encouraged the art students to submit artwork. So definitely, more than a handful of the applications were from our local art students, and we'll plan to do that again. In addition to having that box in front of the high school available. But I think we definitely want to have the opportunity to better promote the program through maybe Arts Orange County and some of the other organizations, so that, we continue to get a good, healthy amount of applications to consider for these boxes.
Okay. And so one last question on that then. The eligibility is it's not just restricted to Dana Point artists, but at this point, any artist. I mean, I don't imagine this will happen, but if someone from, New York City wanted to apply, could they do that?
Sure.
Okay.
We're not restricting it. I think we do look for local history and themes, is a consideration for the utility boxes. I think, we definitely want to encourage good art to come forward through this process, and encourage, folks in our community to continue to submit artwork for it.
Okay. All right.
Did I answer your question?
Yes, it does. And I guess some of my comments just for the council, I mean, my understanding is to help local artists, and I certainly don't mind competition, but I guess just to consider if we could give direction, and maybe it's already in there, that as a weighted factor in determining who to select, that any Dana Point artists would be given how should I put it, a special look or some type of weight as opposed to, someone who's not local, if that's the intent of this program. So I don't think I need to amend the motion, but I don't know if anyone else has thoughts on that, but that's my 2 cents. But like I said, I second the motion. I'm going to support it.
Thank you. Mr. Frost or Pilar?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would agree with Councilmember Vic Sorick. I would like the Arts and Culture Commission to give some additional weight to local artists, but I certainly am in favor of it. And I think it's probably correct that the folks get $250 this time also. So thanks.
Anything else?
No comments, Mr. Mayor.
Mayor Pro Tem Miller.
This is something I forgot to ask on this. So since we're paying the artists for their art, do we now own it?
Yes, once they submit their application, they basically sign over that the city has all of the rights to their artwork. From time to time with the boxes, sometimes it needs to be tweaked. We need to go back to the artist and have them adjust things. And if there's damage to the box, we want to own the art so that we can not have to recommission an artist to go out and repair it, but we can just reprint the vinyl wrap to fix the box. So.
Okay, but the artist will still have the ability to go ahead and sell it again,
Yeah.
correct? If they want to do prints or whatever they're going to do.
Yes.
Okay, and what was the reasoning for the $250 payment to the artist? I mean, we're giving them a public venue to display their art. There's value in that. But was there a reason that they were giving on why this round we thought we should pay them as opposed to last round when we didn't?
I think it's something that the commission, has wanted to consider. I think with COVID, a lot of the opportunities where artists would have events and so forth to sell art did not happen this last year. And, that is a community of folks trying to make a living through art, and they wanted to do something to help compensate. And this was a way to do that.
Okay, I don't disagree with it. It's just a matter of if we're paying, we need to own it. But also that's another reason why I thought these screens might be good for them, because now they can have a link to the entire gallery if somebody really likes what they're doing. But okay, I mean, I just want to make sure that if something happened, I know that there have been issues in the past that if something was damaged, we didn't have the right to fix it. So, okay, thank you.
All right. I'll just say thanks to Ms. Renders and the Arts and Culture Commission for making this happen. The first round was certainly successful, and all those utility boxes that are wrapped up with very cool artwork certainly improve the little corners that they're on. So thanks for doing this and for continuing it. With that, I will call for a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
And that means no opposed. That passes unanimously. Brings us to our, thank you, staff. Brings us to our next item of business, which is the mid-fiscal year 2020-2021 budget status report. And this is a budget status report, and that the recommended action is that we receive and file this item. Mr. Killebrew.
Yes, sir. I will field this one. And I will be brief. I did have an opportunity with each of the council members to go through the report. And obviously at the end of it will be available for questions. Just to summarize, this budget, the original budget for this fiscal year was actually adopted in June of 2019, a 2-year budget. We're in the second year. Last year, after COVID hit, we did process amendments, significant amendments to this budget. And now rolling forward to now, these are, if you will, tweaks, updates, both revenues and expenditures that take us through the end of this fiscal year. We are tracking very close to the significantly amended budget that the council did amend, I believe, in September of this past year. The net is, there's a laundry list of adjustments to line item revenues. Of note, the council had already approved it, reducing the transient occupancy tax budget all the way down to 6.9 million. The recommendation today is to take it up a notch. We're doing a little bit better than our reduced number. So we're looking at a projection of 7 million. It won't surprise me that we even do better than that by June 30. Sales tax, no adjustment in this report, but there's probably 30 line items in our revenue side. The net of all those proposed adjustments is an increase overall of $440,000 on our roughly $35 million revenue budget. And on the expenditure side, 3 line item adjustments are recommended that net to $310,000. The first being budget for our building division's professional services contracts for some of our contracted out work. We've got an inspector, a permit tech, on-site plan review a couple days a week, plus off-site plan review. That total on that one is $350,000. We've got a proposed reduction in the police services budget without reducing patrol service levels, but our chief, Captain Monteleone, has done a yeoman's job this year dealing with a lot of transitions of staff and injuries and backfilling using folks on overtime and or utilizing some of our community services unit folks in patrol. So she's achieving quite a bit of savings without jeopardizing our patrol services. So there's a $400,000 reduction in that budget, and offset by a proposed increase in the city attorney budget, dealing with a couple of litigation matters. And the net overall is a positive budgeted impact of $130,000. There's also a slight adjustment. I shouldn't say a slight. There's also a proposed adjustment in our citizens option for police services, a grant fund that we get. We don't budget it until we actually get the revenue, but it does pay for some of our services like our school resource officer and our drug and alcohol intervention program. We have $150,000 that we got. We're asking to budget it both revenue and expense. And with that, staff is I do want to point out that the federal government is considering legislation right now that would provide additional stimulus monies to for the economy. That also includes money to go to local governments. It's not clear how that might come out or if we get it. It'll all be good. None of those, if I will, hoped for revenues from the federal government to help us with a lot of our revenue losses this past year because of COVID. None of that's factored into these budget. If money comes our way, then we'll be back here talking to council about recommendations in line with what the council's already told staff, which was let's replace the reserves we had to use to get through this past year and other things, unfunded liabilities and anything else. But we'll be bringing that back to council if and when we get money from the federal government. And with that, I'm available for questions.
Thank you, Mr. Kilbrew. Before I open it up for questions, can you kind of just lay out for everybody the process here? This is a receive and file. Gives us a chance to sort of get this out and a first swing at it. When will the Financial Review Committee look at it? When will it come back to the council? When will you need a vote on it? What's the next few steps on the budget?
Okay, well, this is amending this year's budget. In about 4 weeks or so, staff will be producing a proposed budget for the next 2 fiscal years. That will go up to the next Financial Review Committee meeting at the end of April. And there are budget workshops and hearings on our forward calendar, taking us into June for budget hearings and adoption.
Gotcha. So we're actually looking for a motion tonight to amend to authorize these amendments to the budget, right?
Correct.
Gotcha. That's sort of me correcting my my moving too quickly tonight. So I will. Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Killebrew? All right, go ahead with the questions, and we'll wait for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mike, where was it? On page 212, I guess it's item 13, page 3 of item 13, where it shows the TOT, and we kind of go through through the year-to-date budget summary, you showed that we have percentages of revenue and expenses against last year's budget. Could you show us, and I don't need it tonight, obviously, but what the percentage is against this year's current budget, where we are on that, if we're show how close we are to hitting it? That was just more of a question. I was looking at the short-term rental, and it looks like we're 37% down. Did we lose any permits on this? Are we still at the same number of short-term rental permits as we were?
I believe we've lost, though, Brenda's pointing out, we've lost 3 in the last year.
Okay, all right. And it's probably more COVID related than anything. I mean, who knows? I mean, they could have been 3 big short-term renters. So, okay. My other question was, art and public places. We already covered that. And then the building professional services on page, what page is that on? So 10 of item 13. We have a $350,000 increase.
It's page 10.
Page 10, correct. Yeah, sorry. Could you explain what is happening there that we're at, last year it finished at 777,000. I guess this will get us pretty close to that, but why do we need such a large increase with 3-4 months to go?
And this year is a little bit different than last year. Last year had more to do with contracted out plan reviews. This year we've had 2 positions go vacant, staff left, and we've had to backfill them. And then that's 2 of the positions that are covered under the budget adjustment. But also, if you look at agenda item number
8.
Sorry, 8.
8. Right.
We explained that there was really 4 pieces to this puzzle. There's a permit tech position that we've had to backfill in the counter services. We brought in a contract building inspector to help backfill for another position that left. We've had to continue to contract out more complex plan reviews like we've typically done to augment staff workloads or resources. And then the other piece that we began doing after COVID hit, and we saw a large uptick in residential home improvement projects that were a lot less complex. We did, instead of mailing those off to a third-party reviewer just to handle the volume of the workload, we started bringing an individual in 2 days a week to work out of our counter services area. It's proven to be very successful. Some of these staff left from one agency to another agency. At some point here in the near future, or at some point in the future here, we would anticipate, even if it doesn't happen, we anticipate that workloads will go down and we'll be able to send these essentially temp services back and handle workloads with our own staff. But that's the mix of all the stuff that's in this budget adjustment that's supporting the contract amendment also that you see as agenda item number 8.
Okay. And so most of this increase is going to be reimbursed, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And it sounds like a lot of it was we had to bring on contractors because we had personnel leave. So there's going to be an offset in personnel costs. And okay. And I think some of this, if I looked in there, we have some on-site inspectors and things that we have for larger projects. I think we're still doing that as well, correct?
That is correct. And the adopted budget it dialed back what had been the last couple of years worth of expenditures for these contract services. We haven't been giving the department, whether it was community development or engineering services, public works, a full year of contract budget that they thought they might need. We're constantly reviewing workloads and whether or not we need to contract for these services. So, honestly, not that they would ever go on autopilot and just keep using these outside services, but we're constantly working with them to make sure we're managing our resources and expenditures appropriately.
Okay. All right. That's all I have. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other questions for Mr. Killebrew before we go any further? Madam Clerk, were there any public comments for this item?
No, Mr. Mayor.
No? Then I will make a motion to authorize the budget amendments briefed by Mr. Killebrew.
Second.
Okay, any discussion on that, gentlemen?
I would just point out, Mike, I think you did a good job. What was it, September? So we're at what, a third, 130K to the positive based upon your September's strategy. So that to me seems like it was a good job back in September.
Mr. Victoric.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I'll just echo that and say to Mr. Killebrew, as I always do, fantastic job. And I appreciate the fact that you are budgeting conservatively. I noticed that, for example, on the licenses and permits and charges for services, you're budgeting conservatively with the expectation that development might be slowing, but it, I guess, has not so far. But that is the prudent way to budget, and I appreciate that you've been doing that since I've been on the council. And thank you for your stewardship of our budget. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. No? No one else?
I just
Mayor
want to
Pro Tem-
echo staff's hard work on this. I know this has been a crazy year for all of us, and to be able to make those adjustments back in September to get us to this point, that was impressive. And I just want to thank everybody for all the hard work on the staff at Dana Point. Thanks.
Yeah. I won't say it again, but I will say that I completely agree with all those comments. And with that said, I'll call for a vote. I think I see where most people stand on this one. So all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And any opposed? That passes unanimously. Which brings us to staff reports. Thank you very much, staff, everybody, for all the hard work you do on the budget. Mr. Killebrew?
Yes, just really quick, it's heartening to see the reduction in hospitalizations and ICU use for COVID-related patients. I think a big part of that has to do with the vaccinations taking place in the county, and I want to give a shout out to our staff. We've got 3 staff that have been working full-time, 1 since January, and 2 more over the last month have been helping to manage logistics at the pods, both one, the longer term person setting up the pods, the boots on the ground, managing, setting up logistics and getting the points of distribution for vaccinations up and running. We're going to get one of our staff back tomorrow, and the other one should roll out of those efforts in the coming days. And then hopefully by the end of the month, we will get our long-term loan to the program back, as the county's finally stood up enough additional resources and contract resources to run these efforts. I also want to give a shout out. I believe we've got 10 or 11 other staff that have volunteered the last couple weeks, their weekends, to go and work at the pods to help with the staffing. And it's really heartening. We literally just put an email out to staff, says anybody wants to go and help, sign up here. And, we had a good turnout. So almost 1/4 of our staff have committed time to working at the vaccination sites, and I really appreciate it. I'm proud of them. And with that concludes my report.
Thank you, Mr. City Manager. Mr. Munoz.
I have nothing this evening.
Fantastic. I will just thank everyone for joining us. Remind you to please dine and shop local. The next regular meeting of the City Council will be March 16th at 5 p.m. here in this room, the City Council chamber located at 33282 Golden Lantern, Suite 210, Dana Point, California. And we are now recessed to closed session.